Good morning and welcome to Ag Talk and Raw, where we talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Today, I have some really interesting things to talk about. You can see my hair. See that? I haven't shaved my head in a couple days. But anyways, that's not what we're going to talk about. All right, so I have a laundry list of things to talk about that were in this last video, Corn Talk, November 26, 2018. And I also have some information on on a Hesston Baler. Okay, so a lot of guys have been asking me, and we'll start off with the Hesston Baler, but a lot of guys have been asking me what my thoughts are on the UXD. What is it, 2270 UXD? It's Hesston's answer to Krone. It's Hesston's answer to Krone. So what I did was I did a little research. And it wasn't reading research. I actually contacted AGCO. I contacted AGCO through a chat server. And you can do this yourselves and ask all the questions you want, and they will answer them to the best of their ability. And if they don't know the answer, they just refer you to a dealer, which I've already spoken to the dealer. I've spoke with Carl Zimmerman out at Zimmerman Farm Service on this baler. And what he told me was, well, I'll tell it to you this way. He told me that it's the first year out for the thing. 2018 is the first year out for this thing. He says he doesn't have any out there. He's not recommending those balers at this time for a simple reason is nobody knows. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig on this baler. Well, that wasn't good enough for me. I want to know. I don't want to be the guinea pig, but I do want to know what the differences are in this baler, say, versus the Krone 1290 HDP2. The HDP2 is kind of what they're targeting. I think they're trying to get somewhere between the 1290 HDP and the 1290 HDP2. So this baler from Hesston is extraordinarily heavy. It's actually right around the same weight as the HDP, maybe a little bit more weight to it, which kind of shocked me. I was rather surprised that the weight of that machine was, I believe it's about 2,000 pounds, not quite 2,000 pounds heavier than what I have in my HDP. Not the HDP2. That's a different animal. That machine is heavier than the Hesston Massey Ferguson baler, the UHD 2270. I thought it was 2290, but it's 2270, I think. Anyway, whatever. It's the 3x4 baler. So I started my questioning with AGCO. I think her name was Abby. And she says to me, I asked her what the price difference was or what the price of the baler was. Well, I know the price of that baler is somewhere around $230,000 for that baler, which, is in line with the HDP2, HDP2. It's in there in between. It's in there. It's right there. It's very competitive with those pricing. But the big difference that I noticed between the Krone and the Massey Ferguson by Hesston is that the Krone HDP2 is an 8-tie machine. Okay, so you've got 2 extra knotters on the HDP2, and you're still at 6 knotters on the UHD, or UHD, UXD, UHD, Massey Ferguson. So I'm like, all right, well, okay, so how the hell do you perform as well as they claim this thing is going to perform with 6 knotters? I have used many different types of baling twine trying to find the best one that fits the baler. Now, I really liked the Krone baling twine. Krone baling twine was the most consistent baling twine that I've ever used. The problem that I found with the Krone baling twine is that I was breaking bill hooks. The tongues on the bill hook, the little thing that goes like that. I'd snap those off maybe a month, just randomly, bang, snap it off. Misties were unheard of, I just didn't have them until I would break that little tongue. And then, then what do? You got to get out. you got to spend the $80 on those little friggin' things. They're expensive. They're damned expensive. So the little tongs, I had to replace those, and it just annoyed me. So what I did was I decided I wasn't going to use that twine anymore. Unfortunately, Krone has designed the twine for the baler, but I was breaking those little tongues, and it annoyed me. So I talked to the guys out at Messick's where I bought the baler, and they told me that there's an adjustment that I can make within the knotter that may alleviate that problem, may alleviate the problem. So what I did was, most problems with balers is actually the twine. So if you've got an inferior bale twine or a bale twine situation or something you can't explain that it never did before until you started using this new brand of baling twine or this different knot strength baling twine. And I'll explain some of the baling twine scenarios here. You go down to your regular dealer and it says, and you see 440 knot strength twine, which is pretty common. 440. I like the 550 personally. I was using 650 knot strength Krone twine, which costs you a little bit more. You put a little more in a bale, but it costs you a little bit more. So anyways, I decided that I would go with Cordex Agri. I've used Cordex in the past, had awesome luck with Cordex Agri twine. It works very, very well. So you go down to the box store, your John Deere dealer, your New Holland dealer, your Case dealer, your Krone dealer, whatever, and you buy the twine that's on the shelf. And I'm going to use Titan twine as an example. So Titan twine is made, I believe, in Brazil. And, because most baling twines are made in Brazil for some strange reason. But anyway, so in Brazil, they're making this baling twine. Titan twine says 440-pound knot strength. All right, great. I buy 5 pallets. Now, I'm giving you a scenario that I have experienced myself. Great. I buy 5 pallets of Titan twine, and I put the first pallet, first balls of twine in my baler, and I go out and bale, and I set my baler up, on the computer, and it's baling okay, and I'll pop a knot every once in a while, and I'll back down the pressure a little bit until I get it in the zone. Okay? So I use one pallet up, and I move into the next pallet, which isn't going to happen on the day that you move into the next pallet, because when you fill a baler up, you've got approximately 700 bales worth of baling twine in the baler before it catches the new twine out of the next pallet. Well, you just, for shits and giggles, you're moving along, and all of a sudden, you're not even missing that occasional knot. So you're like, I'm going to get a little greedy here. Hit it a couple of buttons up, get that pressure up, get more hay in those bales, and you find that there's a sweet spot there that you can go, maybe 200 pounds of pressure more on the boards to compress another 100 pounds of hay into the bale. Well, 100 pounds of hay in each bale, more in each bale on a load of 36 is 3,600 pounds, so you've almost got 2 tons of hay more on the same trip, same load. Unless you're blowing over your 80,000 pound weight, that's always a good thing. So you go through the next pallet, and you're like, wow, this was great. You get into the third pallet, and then all of a sudden, pow, 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 you got bales blowing up out the back end of this thing going nuts, like nuts. You're rebaling. You're getting strings wrapped around your pickup. You're cursing. You're swearing. You're like, what the bloody hell is going on here? Because the last pallet of twine I had no problems with. And it's going to be one knot. One knotter. One knotter is going to do it. And then another knotter. So it's like, God, so you're fooling with the knotter. You're like, God, what the hell is wrong with it? You're checking knife arms. You're retension and everything. You're pulling your hair out if you got any. You're going nuts. And the reality of it is that Titan twine, that 440 knot strength, is an average knot strength. So when they make a run of twine and they put their ingredients in and they do their knot strength test, they test the knot strength on that run. And if that run meets the 440, then they package it. So out of 100 balls in that run, some of those balls are going to be at 500, or 495, and some of those are going to be at, like 405. So somewhere's in the middle at 440, that's your knot strength. So you make a run, and one pallet is, actually higher than what the third pallet was, because maybe the second pallet knot strength is more like 475 or 485, that whole pallet of twine. But then when you get to the third pallet of twine, or that third run, maybe the mix wasn't mixing correctly as they were running that plastic through there, and the knot strength is only, the average knot strength in that particular pallet is only going to be 440 pounds. So you probably got a lot more of the 400 knot strength twine scenario going on than you do the 495 knot strength scenario, because they don't test even every single ball of twine before they throw it into the pallet. So that's what happens there. Now, Cortex Agri, if it says 440, or let's use 550. If it says 550, because that's what I use from Cortex Agri, is 550. I used the pink 600 knot strength. Very, 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 very happy with that twine. I'm going to buy more of that this coming year, 2019, because I really like that 600 knot strength twine. Feeds nice, less missed ties. The twine is actually a little thinner, so it goes through the knotter easier, goes through the rollers easier. The knots are not as bulky as, say, the 650 of the Bryden or even the Krone twine. It seems a little softer, so there's more pliability there. It's not so rigid. So you need a little bit of give in a knot. So when I buy Cortex Agri, that is not an average knot strength. That is the minimum knot strength. So out of 100 balls of twine, the weakest knot is going to be 600 knot strength. So the weakest ball in that pallet is going to be 600 knot strength. So when I set up my baler in the spring with that particular twine, and this year has been dead nuts on, I haven't had to loosen it up. 56% on the Krone baler. 56. When you get into a wet bale situation, that kind of does change things. I'll back it down to 54, because you will actually overload the system and you'll have problems. So, anyways, why am I talking about this twine and while I'm talking about the Massey Ferguson Hesston? Well, this is where they get you. Okay, so we're just going to compare the HD 1290 HDP2 to the Hesston UXD, because that is their ultimate goal, is to compete with that Krone baler. They really want to compete with that. They're stepping up to the line. So they're doing it with six knots. Well, here's the story. I asked the lovely Abby on the other end of the chat room, computer. I said, hey, how come this the heater turned on. How comes this baler is only a 6-tie knot, and they're producing a 2,000-pound bale in a 3x4 package? What makes this baler do this when it takes 8-tie to do it in the competing manufacturer? It's the baling twine. And I'm like, okay, it's the baling twine. So what's the difference between a baling twine? So the HDP2 Krone by Krone uses all baling twine up to 700 knot strength. I believe it's 700. I think Krone's highest knot strength is for the HDP2 is 700. I've used 650 in my Krone, like I said earlier. Worked fine. Just needed a little tweaking so I didn't break off the tongues. But I had excellent bales. They lasted. They worked. Everything was good. So there you go. The UDX, in order to get the amount of hay, close to the amount of hay that is going in through the Krone with a smaller bale, I think it's a shorter bale chamber. I'm not 100% sure on it, but I'm pretty sure that the bale chamber is still 10 feet. It might be 12 feet. I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that one. It's the baling twine. You have to buy proprietary baling twine for that baler. And hold on to your butts, ladies and gentlemen. Each ball of that proprietary baling twine is over $50 a ball. So, the price of the baler is in line with the HDP2, the 1290 HDP2. It's right there. Okay, I can put a $28 ball of twine in there. I can still produce a 2,000 plus pound bale of hay with a $28 ball of twine. Whereas the UDX, which I just paid almost the same amount of money for as the Krone HDP2 at $240,000 plus dollars, depending on the options that you get. Now I have to spend $20 more, or actually $20 to $25 more per ball to put the same amount of hay as I would get in a different brand's baler using lesser twine. So that's where the UXD by Massey Ferguson comes into play. In order to get the pressure, the density of the bale that you are looking for, you have to buy proprietary twine for approximately $20 to $25 a ball more to do the same thing as if you would have just bought the Krone baler and ran your $28 to $32 a ball twine through it. That's right. So there you go. Those are my thoughts, and those are my experiences with Hesston Massey Ferguson. And what I know about the Krone HDP2 is because I run Krone HDP straight 1290 HDP high speeds, and I love them. Oh, here's the other thing. The Hesston actually does stroke 5 strokes a minute faster than what the Krone does. So you may have a comparable speed. Strokes per minute does not mean you're going to go faster. It's the speed in your baler is not in the plunger itself. I mean, you can make a pre-charge chamber this big and have 50 strokes a minute, or you can make a pre-charge chamber this big, and go 45 strokes a minute. The speed is in the pickup and the pre-charge packer itself. So the VSF by Krone runs pretty quickly, runs pretty smoothly. It fills a larger bale chamber, pre-charge chamber, and it strokes at 45 strokes a minute. So, I think I just broke my mouse. It strokes at 45 strokes a minute. So, in there, speed-wise, speed will beat itself up, too. So, when you've got this 6,000-pound plunger that's going at 45 strokes a minute, it's going right along, and that's in line with everybody. I think New Holland was a little faster at 47. I had a rock go into a New Holland baler and bust the pins off of a plunger, and did that. I've never broken the plunger on the Krone, but you add, say, 5 more strokes a minute, that thing's moving right along. It just creates more stress. Either way, boom, boom, boom. And those plungers are not going to be 5,000 or 6,000 pounds. They may be up around 5 tons each. They're very heavy, very, very heavy. So there's a lot of pros and cons. I am now what you would consider a Krone fanboy because I've run the Krones. I know the differences. I've run the Hesston, I've run the Krone, I run the New Holland. I even ran the John Deere. I liked the John Deere. I really did. I just think that John Deere needs to be in it longer before I go ahead and jump off that cliff and change brands again. Yes, but the John Deere, again, is just as expensive as the Krone. It's just as expensive. Because Krone offers three models of a 3x4 baler. They have the Krone 1290 high speed, the 1290 HDP high speed, the 1290 HDP2 high speed, and those are the 3 models. John Deere has one, which maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I don't know. That one model could be somewhere. It is more than likely somewhere between the Krone the Krone 1290 high speed and the HDP high speed, like I have. And I'm sure it's in there because I felt that the baler did a good job, and I only ran it for 15 acres. I ran about 60 bales through the thing, and I thought it was a smooth running machine with too narrow of a pickup. But John Deere has remedied that with the 1 Series. So anyways, enough of that being said. I do not have a mouse right now. There it goes. It decided to connect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to read some of these comments and get back to some of the questions. Okay. Guys in our area have been experimenting with side dressing soybeans. What are your thoughts on that? Did it for years. Did it for years and years. We used ammonium sulfate at times to get the sulfur levels up on soybeans. Potash and sulfur, done it. It's phosphate really not so much in soybeans, but yeah, potash and sulfur, we did that. I did it a lot, quite a bit. You add, say, 30 units of nitrogen to soybeans, that gets them mother scratchers up and running. Sulfur is very important for test weight, and potash, plant health. Go for it. I'd say go for it. It costs you a little bit of money, but there's a yield jump of 5 to 8 bushels to the acre by doing that. Pretty evident, and you have more even field. So if your beans are going from 40 to, say, 55 bushels to the acre, with a side dress of that, you're going to be somewhere in the 52 to 58 bushels to the acre, or even higher. I mean, in my area, 50 bushels to the acre is pretty damn nice. I have gone 80 bushels with soybeans. Don't know why. It's just this one field just love to grow soybeans, and it's a shithole field. I don't understand it, but there you go. Okay, 1, drought tolerance, 2, ear flex, 3 is a BT corn. Anyway, so I guess we're talking about corn. Wes, I didn't get a single ear of corn this year. I planted 140 plants. None of them grew to the point that they were worth eating. So much damn rain and a lack of sun just ruined them. Real depressing. My little hobby farm was a wash with corn this year. I got green peppers and some tomatoes, but that's it. Well, it seems like rain isn't going to really hurt a corn crop. Heat and rain make grain, just so you know. If it was cold, that's more than likely what some of your problem was, or insects, or even other pressures, like maybe a deer came along and bit the silk off or pulled the tassel out of the center. Okay. Hey Wes, have you ever thought what your life and operation would have been like if you weren't on YouTube? Love the vids and both channels. God bless. Okay. You see my life on YouTube. The only difference is, instead of me milking cows in the morning, I get up and I edit videos, or I make these videos. That's the only difference. There's nothing other than a few extra dollars in my pocket, which actually gets spent back into the farm for other operations on the farm. And I do take some trips, but I think I would be, at this point in my life, taking those trips whether I was doing YouTube or not, because honestly, I've found a fondness for travel. I like seeing other places and meeting other people and going to historical sites around the world. Will I ever go to Afghanistan? Highly doubt it. But it would be cool. I mean, if they could behave themselves down there and not want to remove my head from the rest of my body, I would definitely go there. Yeah. All right. We use atrazine with Caprino for pre-emergence. Yep. There you go. That's, I don't know what Caprino is, so I'll have to research that one. But yeah, atrazine is an old standard for us. Corn is a hybrid, not a variety like soybeans and Manathor small grain crops. Many other, you got to get a space in there. I'm like, what the fuck is a Manathor? Corn is a hybrid. Yeah, well, corn doesn't have to be a hybrid. You can buy open pollination, which is not a hybrid. It's just a variety. Different varieties and hybrids, or you take a variety that is an open pollination variety and you can make it a hybrid, which comes up with two parent crops, which make a child, or that hybrid. So you take two varieties to create a hybrid. If you didn't think I knew what I was talking about, there you go. Very informative as always. More perfect place of honor for the plaque would be hard pressed to be found. Yes, I need to get that thing like that so that it looks so nice. I actually did that on purpose. It's a little lower than I normally would put it, but I would maybe put it a little lower than that just for the fun of it. But okay, all right. P1197AM is a workhorse. I've planted it for 3 years and have absolutely no complaints. Yields have always been over 200, heavy clay ground, and I will plant it again next year. Not only that you will look good with a pioneer hat, Corvus is great also. Corvus is a herbicide. So I heard a lot about Corvus. Might even try it out. We'll have to see. For heavy clay soils, Ben Smith, maybe that is, maybe that's a go for me. I don't know. But we'll give it a shot. I got time, I know a lot of guys are complaining about Pioneer corn, but to be quite honest with you, Pioneer and a lot of these other companies, they buy the technology from, say, Monsanto or DuPont, and then there's just very little difference between them. Back when I was growing corn more regularly than what I would be doing now, it's kind of funny because we went and sat down with a seed dealer, and this was back when I think what the hell were we planting? I don't even remember. DuCalb? I think it was DuCalb. DuCalb was a DuPont product. I think DuCalb was it was Dobler's. Well, whatever it was, it doesn't really matter. The salesman says this variety is the same as this variety. So this Pioneer variety and this Dobler's variety are identical. The only difference is they felt that the relative maturity on this one was a day different. Everything was the same. It was just a purchased seed. So when you buy a hybrid that is raised on, they used to call them brown baggers back in the day, but they stopped brown baggers with technologies. Once technology came onto the scene, the brown baggers they couldn't do it anymore. They weren't allowed to, sell the overflow of the varieties to local farmers because the technologies were owned by companies, patented by companies like Monsanto and Ciba and DuPont. So Aventis, that all had to go away. But now they just label it differently. So if DeKalb says, hey, you know what, I need this, and Pioneer says, hey, we've got that, or we've got too much of it, you can take so many bags of this and label it yourselves because you are part of us anyway, and the price difference sometimes is quite large. So you kind of got to do your research that way. That's just the way it is. Sounds like an OLF plow day is in store for the corn ground, LOL. Enjoy hearing info on different herbicides. Anxious for 2019. I'm anxious to get 2018 harvest done, which will happen in spring of 2019, I'm thinking. Herbicide-tolerant weeds are caused by people being cheap and not using the right amount of products, just skimping. Well, I could almost agree with that, Bo, but here's the thing. Back when Roundup Ready soybeans were a thing, half a pint to the acre was what they were recommending. The labels from way back then, and I actually have a book. On these things from way back then. So half a pint to the acre, you wouldn't dream of half a pint to the acre. You're looking at a quart to the acre now just to catch up because they don't. There's my beautiful girl. Look at that. Shake it. Baboy. Baboy. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Okay, so 6.5 Creedy, the heat units, not degree days, Mr. Know-It-All. And I did actually reply to this guy because it's the same thing, you dumbass, and even you understood it. I just had to say that because heat units, a degree is a unit. It takes so many degrees or units. Heat, degrees, degree, unit, same thing. It takes so many degrees, i.e. units, to bring that corn to its relative maturity date. So that's another average. So you take an average of, say, just say 5 years because varieties generally don't last, or hybrids don't generally last any more than 5 years because they come out with the newest, the latest, and the greatest, to charge more money for that bag of seed. The research on that relative maturity is a relative number, meaning an average of over the course of 5 years. So that 112-day corn, some years could be 118 days, and some years it could be 109 days or 106 days. So that relative number is an average over the course of, say, 5 years. So Mr. Know-It-All, 6.5 Creedy. Anyway, stalk rot. Stalk rots are primarily caused by pathogens, not irrigation. Okay, so if you have a fungus or a rot, which is generally a fungus, and the variety is more of a drought-tolerant variety, and you add that water from the irrigation, of course, irrigation is going to advance that rot. Yes, we understand that it is not a pathogen, but it is a rot or a fungus or a problem with the disease resistant in that particular variety or hybrid corn. So you have to be really careful as to what you're buying there. Bo Rindy. We use Acuron and Banville at pre-merge in a one-pass system. Cool. Acuron, I don't know. You see, you got to be careful what you order and what you use, because there are regions of the United States where Acuron may or may not be allowed. Banville is a product that we've used for centuries, forever. I mean, we used Banville back when, forever. I remember Banville when I was a kid, But yeah, we love Pioneer 1498. We have a lot of flat ground, limited rain. Has always been a great variety for consistent yield and silage. You ought to check it out. See what you think. Okay, so we used to grow Northrop King seed corn. And we had some really good varieties back in the early 2000s. I actually have them stapled to the one Kubi parts bin that we have. I stapled them fast there so I would remember which ones were the good ones and which ones were not the good ones, and where they were planted and so on and so forth. So there's a good variety in every single company because, let's face it, they all share technologies now. They don't share it, they sell it between one another. I'm still using Roundup crops, only relying on the Roundup for grass control and conventional herbicides for broadleaf control. You don't need conventional herbicides for broadleaf control if you are relying strictly on Roundup for grass control. Roundup is a non-selective herbicide. It will kill everything. The worst thing that most people do is they mix Roundup with a broadleaf herbicide, and what happens is there's a synergistic effect. And this was brought to our attention back in the early 2000s because, let's face it, Roundup Ready came out in the mid-90s in soybeans and then later in corn. But the synergistic effect means that they will work, but it takes twice as much of the same product to make them work as well as if they were applied separately. Now, if you have a non-selective herbicide like Roundup or Liberty, that you can spray over the top of your corn and soybeans, just use the maximum rate available to you in your area or what the label says for your area, and you should have a cheaper run of it anyway, and it should kill those broadleaf weeds. It always baffled me why anybody would want to use a broadleaf herbicide on alongside of a non-selective herbicide. Just made no sense. Roundup will kill it. The only thing that Roundup really doesn't kill anymore is, in our area, is horse nettle. Not horse nettle. It kills horse nettle. Mare's tail and giant ragweed, and common ragweed. Common ragweed is getting to the point where it is, you're going to need something different. I would never mix Roundup with 2,4-D Banville, and for the simple reason is I don't think it's a smart move. You either go through with one or the other, or if you have a resistant broadleaf weed, leave the Roundup out of it. Just leave it out of it and go with a heavy dose or the right dose of the broadleaf or selective herbicide that you're going to use. There's my pen. And here goes my pretty girl. Oh, I'm going to grab her. Come here. Oh, won't do it. She's going off to the bedroom with William. Little William's in there. So, yeah. So that's just my thoughts. Maybe some people say I'm an asshole and don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But these chemistries, you really got to read the labels. And if you read the labels, most people don't even spray their own crops anymore. A fertilizer company or a sprayer company will sell you every time on mixing these herbicides together because they have to use more to do the same thing as if they used one or the other alone. And that costs you in the end. And their job is to make money. It's not really to make you as much money as possible. It's for them to make as much money as possible while keeping you happy that you used them, because they will use the maximum amounts that they need to use to get that done. They'll use every kind of crop oil they can find that works for them, and every single thing that they can do. When if you were to spray it yourself, you would read the label and be like, hey, so why is it that I need a pint of Roundup and alone to control these weeds, but when I mix 2,4-D or Banville, I actually have to use a quart of Roundup and no longer a half a pint of 2,4-D or Banville, or a pint. I didn't say a pint. Now I have to use a pint and a half of this. So you just read your labels. That's all I'm saying. So anyway. Okay, I remember when I was a kid, Dad would come home in a pickup load of Amcorn seed and an eagle on the bag, with an eagle on the bag, and Amcorn hats for me and Grandpa and Dad. Grandpa always said when he bought 10 bags of O's Gold, he got hats and jackets, and if you bought more than 10 bags, you were considered a dealer. We wore our Amcorn hats all year and used the empty bags to cover the seats on open station tractors till winter. I think you meant all winter, but till winter. Amcorn was decent corn back in the day. Nowadays, I like Channel, Northrop King, and Rupp varieties. All right, so here's my problem with reusing seed corn bags: the seed treatment. Okay, so the most sensitive part of your body, or absorbent part of your body, is actually your scrotum. If you didn't know this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a lesson. So if you were sitting on those bags, there is a residual of those seed treatments. The fungicides, the insecticides, which are really two of the most nastiest pesticides that you could possibly expose your nether regions to. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I'm wearing a pair of pants and underwear. Well, I guess underwear is optional if you're weird. But if you're wearing a pair of pants and underwear, how in the hell is it going to get to my scrotum? Well, your pants breathe. They do. And when you're sitting on that thing going up and down all day, your pants are like a bellows pushing air in and out of your body. So I would never recommend sitting on bags of seed, corn, soybean seed, anything that has been treated with a fungicide or an insecticide. The other thing is, while handling the seed corn, and I've seen farmers, YouTube farmers, I watched Zach on the Millennial Farmer, and he's probably watching or listening to this right now. I watched him stick his hands in Roundup, okay? Roundup is fairly safe. Fairly safe. I know there's probably going to be a bunch of idiots in here and say, well, the state of California deemed it cancer-causing. Well, the state of California deemed air cancer-causing. That's just the way California is. They're fucked up. I'm sorry if you're a country boy in California or you're a farmer in California. You know what I'm talking about. California is pretty fucked up. But anyways, when you put your hands or expose yourself to those types of chemicals, whether they're safe or semi-safe, you're better off going down to the Napa, buying yourself some latex gloves. They're pretty cheap, $8 for a box of 100. You get 50 pairs, and you have 50 pairs of protection. I run around with these things all the time. I had a sister that died of breast cancer, and I do not want to have testicular cancer or any other kind, or breast cancer. Men get breast cancer too. So when it comes to sitting on bags of seed corn, and I understand back in the day, when your grandpa, I don't know how old you are, Matt Boss, but back in the day when these varieties were out there, there was not much respect for herbicide and or pesticides in general. Oh, yeah, it just kills weeds. What's it going to do to me? Well, leukemia and growths and other problems that you have, brain tumors, cataracts, you name it, it can happen to you. Even Roundup does have some form of a side effect. I am sure of it. I just would never recommend that. But fungicides, insecticides are the worst for you. Okay, after this wet year and all of our down corn stalk strength, yeah, I know, you got to have stalk strength. Wet years do produce some seriously weakened stalks. Whether it's from fungus, rot, or whatnot, I don't know. It's just the way that is. It also produces lighter test weight. A drought year will produce a higher test weight corn or soybean than a wet year. And I think a lot of guys this year are finding that out if they've never had a super wet year like we've had this year. Yes, there you go. We use atrazine and Prowl H2O. Used them both. I've used Prowl H2O. I prefer Prowl H2O over the old oil-based Prowl or the non-H2O Prowl. I actually liked it. The other, let's see, what somebody wrote in there about the other yellow spray. Prowl works, but it, along with other yellow chemicals, is known to prune roots sometimes. You're talking about Treflan. Treflan, I believe Treflan was yellow. I don't know if you can even buy Treflan anymore. I think you can. But yes, that will prune roots. You got to be careful with that stuff. Use the prescribed rate. Don't be like my grandfather was. He's like, well, if a quart's good, 2 quarts are better. A quart and a half is better. He used to do that. Now, we had clean fields, but we also had, in certain scenarios, we had damaged corn. But my grandfather was a pretty good farmer, so both of them were. Wes, you really sound excited. I'm still trying to figure out. I would point you are going to start bitching about deer. I'm not going to bitch about deer. I'm just not going to tell you what I do to them. That's all. I will abstain from bitching about deer. So no. What's going to happen with the deer is deer hate the smell of spent compost. And if you leave a field up about 50 tons of spent compost to rot down for about a month and a half, and let me tell you something, a month and a half of rotting, smelly, spent compost, it stinks. It stinks so freaking bad. You won't have a deer problem. So you spread that around the outside edge of the fields when the plants are young, and bada bing, bada boom, they stay away. So I'm looking forward to that. That is going to help me out. And Timmy Cornpicker, if you're watching, I'm sure you know this as well. Hey, Wes, isn't Liberty glyphosate? No, it's sulfosate. At least that's what it used to say on the Aventis bottle. Sulfosate, glyphosate is Roundup. Liberty is sulfosate. Unless I'm wrong, I could be wrong. Please, somebody correct me. I'm sure you will. Wes, you should really talk to Andy Hurigan. His YouTube channel is Farming, Fixing, and Fabricating in upstate New York, Syracuse area. He's a big dairy farmer and knows his stuff. He has used Hubner and Dobler. Hope you can gain from his knowledge. He's a real good guy. I've grown corn before, and upstate New York is not New Jersey. I'm sure he knows his stuff, and I kind of do know my stuff also. It's just it's been on the shelf since 2014, and yes, I am excited. I am excited about growing corn. Farming or fixing 3 days ago. You can't beat Liberty for smoking weeds. Been using Liberty Link beans for the last 4 years, and they are better than Roundup beans. Yes, they are. I'll agree to that. I will tell you this. I never grew Liberty beans. I never did. But I got a neighbor down the road here. He grew Liberty beans this year, and I have another neighbor that grew Liberty beans before. His problem with Liberty beans is he was using Liberty and Roundup Ready soybeans, and he hired guys to plant for him, and what they did was in their book, they wrote down Roundup Ready when in fact it was Liberty, or no, it was the other way around. They were Liberty. He wrote down Liberty beans, and in fact they were Roundup Ready beans. And before he left the last field that he sprayed on that 110-acre run with his Rogator, he come back by the first beans, and he was like, there's something wrong. And he knew he had killed them. He killed them. Killed about 110 or 120 acres of soybeans. Just like that. Boom. So if you're going to use Liberty Link beans, I would suggest to if you're going to use Liberty or Roundup, go with one or the other. I would alternate or even buy a double stack gene like a LLRR that is linked together, both. So it doesn't matter if you screw up. I killed corn with Roundup. They were Liberty corn, and I killed corn with Roundup. I replanted, looked terrible, low test weight, terrible. So there you go. All right. Look for my corn. I have big ears, just like my woman. Ha ha ha. I look for my corn to have big ears, just like my woman. What are you, laying with jackasses? I don't know. Anyway, it should be known to the state of cancer to cause California. Yes, California could cause cancer. My nephew Cody, he lived in California for, I think, 6 months, 3 months. 3 months. He was gone for 3 months. Couldn't wait to get home. Said the people there suck. He worked in a refinery. He's a welding engineer, and he has had his fill of California. Very educational video. Thank you. Yes, fish emulsion for deer control. No, not going to use it this year. You haven't been feeding them your crop. They've moved on for the most part. No. I have a neighbor, and he grows soybeans right next to us. And yes, there are deer around, but not the 150 deer herds like we had. There's maybe 15 to 20 now. It is getting less. They are getting less, which I'm perfectly fine with. Okay, mighty fine looking plaque on the wall. Yes, it is. All right, I think I'm running out of time. We're at 45 minutes. How short are your deer? Well, a deer doesn't like to work for its food. Okay, a deer generally grazes the ground. When you see a deer eating soybeans, you don't see them at the top going. They reach down in. They will bite the tops off when they're short, say 12 to 18 inches. But if you get up in that 2-foot range, the deer really don't, they really want to stick their head down in there. They'll pop their heads up, then stick their head down. Pop their heads up, stick their head down. That's the way they work. They will take the tops off too. But corn, if it emerges at that 4.5 foot range, 4.5, 5 foot, I'd rather see an ear at my nose than I would at my waist. It's easier to combine, pick corn that way. For me, I think so. So anyway, whatever, it doesn't really matter. That's just the way it's going to be. So the taller the ear set, the less likely, excuse me, coffee's coming back up. The higher the ear set, the less likely the deer are going to bite that silk off of there. I've had varieties that were, at my belly button, and the deer just walk right down the rows and bite the silk off. About every other ear, and then you get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Beyond nothing. Nothing is nothing. Nothingness. So the higher the ear set, the better off we'll be. Yeah. So anyways, Wes, just curious, does New Jersey have a history of dry years after wet years? I live in California, and that is an issue out here. No, I don't know. It's just the last couple of years have been pretty wet. We have our cycles. We have a cycle that it goes through. So you might have a string, a decade of what they would consider dry, and then you have a decade what they would consider wet. So they're pretty wild swings, I would say. I didn't realize they had dicks in California to get cancer. I think I said something about getting cancer on your dick. Yeah, so 1197 works really well on the East Coast. Well, there you go. Apple Rock Dairy, 1456. He must be an international guy. But anyways, I've talked enough. 4741, and you guys have a great day. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, I'm sorry. And don't forget to check out One Only Farmer if you haven't already. And I will put a link in One Only Farmer so you can check this out. So have a nice day. Thanks for watching.